They came not as conquerors but as arbiters, at least that's what the galactic broadcast said. When the Serati Dominion declared open arbitration across the neutral expanse, their fleets cast shadows on dozens of colony worlds. They claimed they were here to maintain order, to referee escalating border skirmishes. The truth was simpler. They came to enforce submission under the cloak of bureaucracy. And when that didn't work, they brought the fire. The Dominion had faced war before, countless times. From insectoid hive minds to multi-limbed technocrats, they'd put down rebellions like brush fires across a dry field. Civilizations fell because the Serati never fought fair. Their strength wasn't their weaponry, it was their doctrine. They wrote the rules of war, enforced them galaxy-wide, and punished those who disobeyed. But even the Serati feared one thing: total collapse. And so, they turned to Earth. Humans had never been invited to the Dominion's high councils. Too young, too volatile, too undisciplined. They watched from afar as the galaxy argued, postured, collapsed and rebuilt. But when the Lathan Accord fell apart and half the spiral arm plunged into chaos, the Serati had no choice. Their own armies were too stretched. The treaties were collapsing faster than they could rewrite them. Annihilation loomed. So they called on humans, not as allies but as their last resort. Not even the Dominion's inner circles knew what they were invoking. It began on a burned world. Karzel, a once bustling trade nexus orbiting a blue-white sun, was a scorched ruin. The Koran reclaimers had swept through it like a plague, shattering defense grids, dismantling orbital arrays and broadcasting footage of executed Dominion ambassadors. Karzel was supposed to be untouchable. Its fall broke morale sector-wide. Dominion units stationed on neighboring systems mutinied. Whole starfleets deserted. The message was clear. The rules were dead. It was there that humanity made its first entrance, not with fleets, not with diplomats but with boots on the ground. The unit called itself Vanguard Black, a human strike team of 120 soldiers, most of them born on Earth or one of its rougher colonies. Veterans of jungle wars, asteroid sieges and pirate suppression campaigns. The Serati scoffed at their size. A single company? No heavy armor? Minimal atmospheric support? Madness. But Vanguard Black didn't fight like the Dominion. The Serati believed in rules of engagement. Escalation ladders, surrender protocols, honor duels, dispute negotiations. Humans did not. When Vanguard Black landed on Karzel, they used no announcement beacons. No IFF transponders. They dropped from orbit in stealth pods, moving through the shattered cities like ghosts. Their armor was matte black, heat-dampened. Their rifles were compact, brutal. Their drones flew low, using thermal masking and mimicry modules to blend into rubble. In the first 12 hours they wiped out 6 Koran forward posts. In 24 they assassinated 2 warlords, vaporized their bunkers using targeted microbombs, and extracted 30 hostages from a collapsed magrail depot. By the 3rd day the Koran withdrew entirely. By the 4th they detonated their own command citadel to deny Vanguard Black the kill. The Serati called it unorthodox warfare. The humans called it Tuesday. High Lord Esareth Vek of the Dominion's Central Tribunal stood in silence before a holoscreen. The feed showed a human soldier, helmet off, sweat on his brow, dragging a wounded civilian from a burning corridor. It wasn't a military broadcast. It was a data leak from a Dominion comm satellite hijacked by the humans themselves. A deliberate show. They wanted us to see this, muttered Vek. His aide, pale and shaking, nodded. They bypassed 5 encryption layers. The message wasn't scrambled. The message was a simple one. A single line in standard galactic common. You wrote the rules. We shredded the rulebook. Humans didn't just deploy forces. They adapted. Every Dominion army had a specific tactic. Overwhelm, occupy, stabilize. Human tactics shifted like wind through broken glass. Guerrilla. Psyops. Mimetic warfare. Tactical deception. False flag ops. When the Quran tried to fortify an orbital defense ring, humans sent them a dozen refugee ships begging for asylum, then detonated them mid-docking. Horrific, some said. Strategic, others admitted. The worst came with the liberation of Ventress Prime. The Dominion had failed to retake the city world after 3 campaigns. Its core spires were locked in endless fire with no side gaining ground. Serati generals called it the stalemate of iron. Humans arrived with no tanks, no artillery. Just a coded broadcast. For 5 days nothing happened. Then came the floods. The humans had hacked the orbital ice haulers above Ventress, turning them into controlled release bombs. Massive tidal waves swept the lower spires. Quran troops were flushed out of entrenched positions, drowned or frozen. Human squads moved in with breathing gear and underwater mobility packs. They turned the environment into their ally. The SCI-FI watched in shock. "You were supposed to stabilize the region," one Dominion prefect screamed during a crisis call with the human command. The reply was flat. "You asked us to win." Back on Earth, the broadcasts arrived days later. And censored footage spread like wildfire across the infonets. Drone cams showing human soldiers dragging alien prisoners from battlefields, treating their wounds. A medic giving CPR to a young Quran child. Other clips, darker, close-quarters takedowns, hand-signaled executions, silent operations under blood-red skies. The galaxy didn't know what to make of it. Were the humans saviors? Monsters? Or just something new? One Dominion analyst summarized it best. "They fight like they've lost before. And they'll never let it happen again." By the end of the first month, a dozen sectors were under stabilization. Not through treaties. Not through diplomacy. But through fear. Fear of what humans might do next. In the Quran War Council chambers, panic spread. They had underestimated the enemy. Their own scouts reported that humans had begun recruiting from native populations, training them, arming them. Not just foot soldiers. Leaders, thinkers, specialists. Humanity wasn't just fighting battles. They were building revolutions. The Quran strategist Viralax slammed his claws into the planning holomap. "They're turning our planets against us. We didn't lose a war, we lost our control." "Then we adapt," said another warlord. "We write new rules." But it was too late. The humans had already moved on. The final moment of Section 1 occurs far from the battlefield. On the Dominion homeworld, in a high-security archive, a panel of judges studies a set of recovered human war manuals. Pages full of seemingly chaotic strategies. Psychological notes. Language guides for enemy dialects. Doctrines written not by generals, but by behavioral scientists and data engineers. None of it matched Dominion doctrine. "We called them a last resort," one magistrate whispers. Another nods slowly. "And they're going to be our last chapter if we don't learn fast." The screen fades to black. A new line appears, burned in static red. "You asked us to fight your war. Now it's our war. You asked us to fight your war. Now it's our war." The screen blinked. The room fell silent. Every Dominion tribunal member stared, transfixed. That line had come from a hijacked data node embedded within their judicial archives. A location so protected that even internal AI had restricted access. And yet, somehow the humans had penetrated it, marked it, and left. It wasn't a threat. It was a claim. High Lord Vex stood motionless. "They're not asking for our approval. They're announcing possession." A junior counsel trembled beside him. "Sir, what does that mean?" "It means this is no longer a Dominion war," Vex said, eyes locked on the now blank holoscreen. "It means no matter what banner we raise, what rules we draft, or what front we try to draw, they've already redrawn the map. With fire." And deep in the shadows of subspace, Vanguard Black prepared to redraw it again. The humans had split. Not broken, branched. Their command network operated like neurons firing across a vast galactic brain. No central hub. No vulnerable relay. Information flowed through whispers, data pings, encrypted neural bursts. Even when their highest-ranking officer was ambushed and executed on the colony moon Failres 9, operations didn't stall for more than 3 minutes. They didn't rely on command. They relied on intent. Each human cell, from combat squad to infiltration team to resistance trainer, carried a single core doctrine: destabilize the lie, free the truth, win the moment. Their actions proved it. On the frontier world of Direth Tau, Dominion governors had declared the populace non-compliant and initiated orbital lockdown. No ships in or out. All food and medical shipments were halted. A standard Dominion siege. That night, the skies split open. Human blockade runners, silent and heat-cloaked, breached orbit. Some burned on re-entry. Others collided with defense satellites. But enough made it through. Enough to drop 8 packs, weapons, encrypted radios, and encrypted orders written in 10 languages. The transmission followed. To the people of Direth Tau, you are not forgotten. You are not alone. Start the fires. Watch for the signs. 2 nights later, the capital's northern gate exploded from within. By dawn, a rebellion had shattered 4 sectors of Dominion control. By nightfall, Direth Tau no longer belonged to the Dominion. The SCI-FI weren't the only ones watching. The Obari Imperium, a reclusive psionic race from the gas-ringed world of Thalas, began gathering data. They were known for strategic neutrality, But their watchercasts could no longer ignore what was happening. They had predicted conflict. They had not predicted evolution. Human war tech wasn't the most advanced. Their weapons, while effective, were still reliant on alloy ballistics, plasma triggers, compact AI targeting. But that wasn't what made them terrifying. What made them terrifying was pattern violation. Dominion wars followed structure, strategy trees, predictive modeling, escalation indexes. The Obari themselves had used these patterns to forecast 92% of galactic battles over the last 500 years. Then came Earth. Human battle signatures had no rhythm. One assault would follow standard blitzkrieg doctrine, only to dissolve mid-operation into psychological sabotage, redirection, or complete withdrawal. They'd simulate retreat, abandon terrain, and return weeks later disguised as refugees. What made it worse? They succeeded. Repeatedly. The Obari called it the anomaly spiral. Their calculations broke down the longer a human campaign went on. After 30 days, predictability dropped to 48%. After 60, 18%. Beyond 90, chaos reigned. The Dominion's own predictive AIs began locking up, sending contradictory data loops and emergency shutdown signals. The humans weren't rewriting tactics. They were corrupting the algorithms behind the tactics. Aboard the Dominion dreadnought Urzima's Justice, Admiral Vaker tried to steady his hand. He had just received an update from the Ezalon front. A major supply corridor, one they deemed too obscure for human interference, was gone. Disintegrated. The entire convoy vanished, all 43 ships, without a single distress ping. Only one piece of debris had been recovered. A scorched panel with a human phrase carved into it. Every front is a back door. Behind him, a junior analyst sobbed softly. They're playing with us, the analyst choked. This isn't war. This is theater. Vaker's fist slammed into the table. Then let's give them a final act. But even as he said it, part of him wondered, are we even the audience anymore? Meanwhile, back on a fractured moon called Icaran 7, another front broke open. The moon's core was rich with plasma isotopes, ideal for jump gate fuel. Dominion forces held the planet for 11 years. Their command complex lay buried within the hollowed mountains, thought impenetrable. They'd survived assaults, embargoes, and even sabotage. Until a human contingent arrived, not to attack, but to inspire. They hacked the Dominion's education feeds, replacing them with historical footage from Earth. Civil rights marches, revolutions, the fall of empires. A child watching from an outpost saw a man stand before a tank. Another saw a people tear down a wall with bare hands. Then came the message. The walls you live behind aren't fortresses. They're cages. We know the difference. So will you. What followed was not a coup. It was an awakening. Entire labor divisions turned on their guards. Low-ranking soldiers sabotaged their own barracks. When the Dominion deployed shock troops, they were ambushed not by armies, but by teachers, miners, artists, all armed by humans weeks earlier. The uprising was over in 4 days. The moon was lost. But something far worse was gained, a belief. From the shadow of a hidden orbit, Commander Lyra Mays of Vanguard Black watched the flames of Icaran 7 through her visor. Her unit had remained undetected the entire time. They hadn't fired a shot. She turned to her second-in-command. That makes 20 planets now. The man nodded. And more coming. We've got new cells waking up in the Croft cluster. Obari networks are pinging us for encryption keys. Even the Sargath mercs are pulling out. Says humans don't pay in credits, just conviction. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Good. Then she tapped her wrist pad. Patch me into BlackNet. All units. Priority 1. A moment later, her voice rippled through thousands of encrypted channels. This war is no longer a war. It's a reckoning. We don't follow their rules. We don't need their maps. They asked us to fight. We answered. Now we build. Start Phase 2. Phase 2 had no defined shape. It was not written in any book. Not charted in any star system. It happened simultaneously across 5 sectors. In the Vargon wastes, a human engineer jury-rigged a Dominion terraforming tool into a microwave broadcast weapon that caused enemy mechs to fry from the inside. On Tethras 4, a single female operative infiltrated a Dominion High Command gala, disguised as a server. She walked out with 3 fleet security codes and a list of war crimes, then dumped it all into the public feeds. On a derelict mining colony orbiting a dead star, a human commando found a child, Karan, terrified, alone. She didn't kill him. She fed him. Then sent him home with coordinates. Days later, his tribe defected. There were no rules anymore. There was only the will to win, and rewrite what winning meant. Back in the Dominion Tribunal, a final report landed on High Lord Vex's console. He stared at it for a long time, then opened it. The first image was a simple one, a map of Dominion space. Half of it was red. The rest was gray, unclaimed, unstable, untouchable. Not because it was lost, but because humans had declared it outside the game. Unruled, unowned, free. And below the map a new symbol. Not Earth's flag. Not any nation's sigil. Just a white handprint. And the words, "This galaxy isn't yours. It's ours now. And we don't play fair." High Lord Vex stood before the projected map, his clawed hands resting heavily on the cold obsidian table. The red sectors blinked with warnings, the gray ones pulsed with static interference. No signals, no data, no Dominion presence. "This isn't warfare," Vex murmured, the growl in his voice dulled by disbelief. "It's occupation without borders." Across from him, War Marshal Threlin, a veteran of 40 campaigns, rubbed his temples. "You don't understand," he rasped. "This isn't humans conquering us. This is humans rewriting the concept of control. They're not taking systems. They're removing ownership itself." An aide approached, trembling. "Sir. New footage from the Euletris front. You should see this." The holo projector shifted. A fleet of Dominion destroyers was seen converging on a gray sector, attempting to reclaim control. The moment they entered the perimeter, their long-range communications went dead. Then, without warning, their ships began turning on one another. Engines flared. Escorts fired on capital vessels. AI core logs recovered later would reveal nothing unusual, as if every command to attack was perfectly legitimate. The Dominion fleet self-destructed in under 11 minutes. Then the feed shifted again. A message flickered on screen. "Predict us. We dare you." Elsewhere, far from tribunals and holograms, beneath the smoking moons of the Jarnak cluster, a human operative crouched in the blackened rubble of an alien commune. His name was Kai Ruther. Not a general. Not a diplomat. Just a boots-on-dirt infiltrator. The kind who had already seen too many things no one believed until it was too late. He wiped blood from his cheek, ducked beneath a collapsed archway and tapped his comm line. "Blacknet, this is Wraith 9. Target base is gone. Dominion fire teams wiped it. Civilians included. No survivors. Correction, 1 survivor. Mel. Age unknown. Alien species, reads as Othelian. Probably a witness. Do you have control?" Kai glanced at the frightened, feather-skinned alien huddled behind him. "He's not fighting. Just watching. Just stunned." "Then proceed. There's still time to make this matter." Kai stood, eyes scanning the smoldering remains. He didn't reach for his rifle. He reached for a paint can. In bold, crimson strokes, he sprayed a message across the ruined arch. "This was not ours. But you made it our responsibility. That's your mistake." Then he turned to the survivor. "Come with me." The alien didn't speak, but he followed. In the Dominion's core systems, AI command hubs began reporting anomalies, data models degrading over time, simulations spitting out recursive predictions with less than 10% reliability. The Galactic Wargame engine, once capable of modeling entire planetary sieges, now couldn't predict a human landing party. It wasn't just because humans changed their tactics. It was because they refused to repeat any tactic twice. Each assault, each insertion, each rebellion, different structure, different voice, different meaning. They turned warfare into performance art, each act intended not just to destroy, but to humiliate, to unravel, to make sure their enemies understood what they'd become part of. Example 1, Carson Drift. A Dominion weapons cache stored within a derelict mining station. Defended by 10 automated turrets, 2 battle cruisers, and a legion of drone guards. Human response? Not a fleet. Not a battalion. Just a single freighter carrying 5 musicians and 2 power jammers. They docked, played earth jazz through the station's emergency broadcast loops, hacked the Dominion drone control schema using rhythm-based frequencies, and walked out with 70% of the munitions. No casualties. The Dominion report read. Enemy approach, absurd. Unquantifiable. Success rate, 100%. Example 2, Cinder Reach. The humans triggered an entire rebellion by replacing a Dominion food delivery with ration boxes printed with just one phrase. If you're starving under their flag, it's not a flag. It's a leash. Riots erupted in 7 cities. An entire governorate collapsed in 4 days. Commander Lyra Mays reviewed these updates from aboard the hidden carrier Soul's memory, orbiting behind a shattered moon. BlackNet had grown, now a fully autonomous ecosystem of human operatives, alien sympathizers, and defected Dominion minds. Her second-in-command, Rennie Voss, sat across from her, fingers flicking through dozens of intercepted communiques. "They still don't get it," Rennie muttered. Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They think we're here to win a war. But we're not. We're here to end the possibility of their wars." She tapped a screen. It showed half a dozen alien factions once loyal to the Dominion, now broadcasting neutral stances or silent. One had even started transmitting Earth music on public bands. "Jazz again." Lyra smiled faintly. "You know what makes us dangerous, Rennie?" He looked up. "We don't fight for our side. We fight for when no side gets to raise a gun." Back on Earth, the situation wasn't forgotten either. The Sol Defense Assembly sat in grim silence. They knew humanity hadn't been the first choice to join the galactic war. The Council had avoided involving them until the last moment, calling them a volatile backwater species. But Earth had watched the stars burn. They'd seen what the Dominion did to the Criscan homeworld. What they did to the Othelians. To the Vari. To the weak. When Earth was finally invited, it came with the condescending label, "Last Resort." Humans embraced it. And then they flipped the table. Now the Dominion's own words were being thrown back at them. Mocked. Burned into the walls of fallen strongholds. Whispered on every transmission wave. "You made us your last resort. Congratulations. There is no next resort." The Dominion attempted escalation. They deployed the Scorch fleets, ships capable of sterilizing biospheres from orbit. Entire rebel planets went dark. Human outposts burned. Civilians screamed. For a moment, it looked like the old ways might still prevail. Then came the silence. One by one, Dominion Scorch fleet commanders went missing. Not in combat. Disappeared from their own bedrooms. Pulled from bunkers. Evaporated from locked dreadnought command chairs. Every time a body was found, it bore a single marking carved across the armor. "You burned the innocent. So we erased you." And with each assassination, local uprisings swelled again. Not human-led. Alien-born. The humans had franchised resistance. Now entire species fought like them. In the tribunal, High Lord Vec received a new report. It was just a list. No explanation. No commentary. Just planets. Tinkaris Prime. Bostel. Gurid Station. Silent Halo. Caliph 5. Each had been considered untouchable by human operations. Each was now confirmed liberated. Without any human fleet movement. No radio traffic. No invasion. They had been overthrown by their own people. Below the list, a final message appeared. "It's not your war anymore. It never was." Vec's claws dug into the table, cracking the reinforced alloy. "We should have never brought them in." Threlin nodded, hollow-eyed. "And now we can't get them out." Above the shattered moon of Icaran 7, Commander Lyra Mays watched as the final transmission from a fallen Dominion governor was uploaded. He had begged for negotiation. For mercy. For surrender. But BlackNet didn't respond with demands. They responded with education. They sent his plea to every system under Dominion control. Letting the galaxy hear its master beg. Letting every oppressed world know. They're not alone anymore. And somewhere across the stars, a human child picked up a rebel banner. And smiled. Above Icaran 7, in the shadow of the fractured moon, Sol's memory drifted silent and unseen, its carbon-wrapped hull rendering it undetectable to conventional scans. Inside, Commander Lyra Mays watched the final echoes of a transmission fade. The Dominion governor's voice, once unyielding, once soaked in authority, had broken down into sobbing static. A galactic tyrant reduced to a child begging for rescue. His last words hadn't been orders, nor threats, nor declarations of species superiority. They'd been, "Please, just talk to me." And Lyra had listened. But the silence that followed wasn't refusal. It was the sound of justice delivered too late for dialogue. She stood, walked past the officers at their stations, and entered a private chamber that only a few ever saw. Its walls were covered not in weapons but in languages, carved in bone, steel, crystal, and synth silk. Rebellions. Resistance poems. Final screams. First cries of newborns who had survived occupations. It was Earth's war memorial, but written across alien pain. And in its center, a single phrase, glowing faintly in every dialect the Dominion had ever erased. "We learned cruelty from watching you. But what we did with it, that was all ours." The Dominion in desperation tried one last gambit. Not brute force. But rebranding. They announced the true summit of Zera's 9, hoping to lure humans into formal peace talks. Billions watched the broadcast, half believing that perhaps the madness would end, that perhaps humanity would take their seat at the table. And they did. But not the way the Dominion expected. The summit began with regal declarations. Feigned humility. Mistakes on both sides. Common ground. Room to grow. The Dominion High Voice extended a gold-plated agreement document to the human ambassador. Ambassador Tariq Vale took it. Read it. Then set it on fire. He didn't say a word. Just turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, 78 alien factions followed. That was the day the Dominion ended. Not with an explosion, but with abandonment. The illusion of control shattered. The promise of fear bankrupted. The theater of dominance emptied. From the ashes rose a new order, not led but inspired by humanity. It wasn't an empire. It wasn't a council. It was something more dangerous, a collective idea. A virus that couldn't be eradicated. Justice as default. Oppression as a death sentence. Every planet a potential insurgent. And humans? They stepped back. They didn't take the thrones. They broke them. Kai Ruther, the operative from the ruins of the Jarnak cluster, walked across a peaceful valley now blooming where once there had been fire. The Othelian boy who had followed him then now stood taller, older. A teacher now. A storyteller. They walked in silence until the boy finally asked, "Why did you help us? After all the things your kind saw?" Kai stared into the horizon. "Because we remembered what we were before we had guns. Before flags. Before we thought winning was the goal." The boy nodded slowly. "And now?" Kai smiled. "Now we teach others how to win without needing to fight." In the Dominion ruins, in the abandoned throne chambers and forgotten palaces, new graffiti took root. Not all of it human. But some was. The most famous, spray-painted in 30 systems, etched into derelict warships and tattooed across rebel skin, read, "You made us your last resort. But we were always the final rewrite." And somewhere, years later, a child, half human, half alien, sat in front of a screen playing ancient war footage. Watching ships burn. Watching fear unravel. He turned to his mother. "Why did everyone fear the humans?" She smiled, brushed a hand through his hair. "They weren't monsters, love. They were mirrors. And when the galaxy saw what they truly looked like, they couldn't bear it. This was humanity's last resort. Not their end. But the beginning of a galaxy that would never forget who stood up when everyone else fell down." And if you believe stories like this matter, if you want more tales of Earth's defiance, of human spirit rewriting the impossible, of war turned into warning and history reborn with steel and fire, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because this is only one chapter of the human legacy. And the Void Narratives is where every other one begins.